The Thinking Tackle Podcast.
And concentrate on the muscle group and hold it firm form, which he's like the weights are going there and there, and then you're just expelling too much energy or wasting too much energy when you're shaking or moving your legs or you forget to breathe.
So has he not got the hang of this at all yet then?
He did have, and then like this last week, it's all just gone to shit.
Really?
But he was out on the piss at the weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and he's been away as well, hasn't he? So he's out of the routine a little bit.
Completely out of the routine, yeah.
Damian Clarke, welcome to the podcast. We're live.
About time.
Yeah, are you nervous?
Not really, mate. Not
No.
really.
No.
It's only you, isn't it?
Well, that's the reason to be nervous, isn't it?
Possibly. Depends what you come at me with.
Right, okay, first part. We've got the gift.
You have a gift, yep.
So we better let the listeners know that we've got a table coming and we want to fill the table up with different gifts from
correct,
each guest.
Yep.
What we got then, Damo?
Well, I thought long and hard about what to give you or to give the podcast, and Hutchie was a bit of an inspiration to me. You know, he was my hero, and Carp Strikes Back, and then the other books, Carp Now and Then, and his first Carp book. You know, they're classics really, and this is a great book. So I'm going to give you Carp Now and Then.
Thank you very much. I haven't got that book.
Well, you still haven't got it. It's for the podcast.
Well, I'll take it home with me afterwards and bring it back next week.
It's a good read.
Yeah, it's quite poignant as well, isn't it, with Hutchie?
It is, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of early Cassine stuff in there, very early Saussaie stuff, some nice pictures. You know, it's just everybody should read Carp Strikes Back at least once.
Yeah.
I keep trying to get Dovey to read it, but he's just not having it.
Yeah.
You know, but he's such a great writer, very much like Terry. Can tell a great story. Just one of the greats.
We grew up with those stories, didn't we?
We did, yeah. I mean, I grew up reading the Carp Strikes Back, you know, and dreaming about fishing at Saussaie Lake, and I must have read that book 500 times. You know, one of my older friends at Layer Pitts gave me a hardback copy of it, and it's signed by Rod when I saw him a few years ago. It's the worst condition book I've got. You know, the cover's gone, the spine's gone, it's covered in tea stains, it's all bent out of shape. But, you know, that was the thing that really got me into carp fishing.
Yeah. It's a bit of a Bible. I've got the softback copy of Carp Strikes Back. Just the title, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Same time as Star Wars, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and it was just quite an imaginative title straight away. But when we used to fish Saussaie, we'd take the book and leave it in the rucksack, and it used to get battered. But that was the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great book. I mean, I've got every copy that's ever come out.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a bit of a homage to Rod and a bit of a homage to the lake.
Yeah, God bless him. Yeah. Okay, we're getting to the... so you first came to prominence in, I think it was 1991, wasn't it? You were 19 years old and you caught the Snake Pit Common, which was the British record common then at the time.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, that carp was a bit of an enigma. It was pretty much on my doorstep. I lived in Colchester at the time. The lake was only a few miles from my house, so, you know, it was an easy lake to get to. We'd been fishing a little lake down the road, a little sand pit that I'd been fishing there since I was about 14 years old. I caught my first 20 pounder from there, and we used to drive past the lake, and my friend that we were fishing the lake with, his uncle had caught a carp of 27 pounds when he'd been tench fishing or bream fishing over there, but the lake was so difficult to look at. You know, it was basically 12 or 13 acres of wasteland next to a children's home, you know, for difficult kids. And it was basically full of trees. Pretty much looked like a flooded orchard at one end, with very few carp in it.
How many carp were in there? I know there were two. Did it grow in numbers a bit?
It did, but then when I fished the lake, before I started fishing the lake, there was 4 carp in there. There was a double, a 20-pound mirror, a 20-pound common, and the big one. So the first capture that was known to the public of the big common was caught by David Westerman, and he caught 3 of the fish in one session. So he had, I think it was rails fish, which became known as rails fish, was a mirror he caught. I think it was a 20-pounder. Then he had the common, the smaller common, and he had the big one, which was 41 pounds 8 ounces. And then at that point, he obviously went in the Angler's Mail, and the world was blown apart.
So what year was that?
That probably been about 88, I think.
Right. So it was, so you called it £45 when it was the record. Sorry, just so after that, did it get caught? Did Phil Harper catch it after you?
Yeah, no, Phil caught it before me.
Right.
So basically, David Westman caught it. Zen caught it later that same year or the following year. Then Phil Harper caught it. Then a pal of mine, Paul Wells, he caught it the following year at 43.8. And then I caught it in the June of 91 at 45.12.
Wow. So you were like 19 years old then. What did... that ruffled a few feathers, didn't it? With the you had some good, well-known anglers fishing on the lake at the time.
Yeah, well, there was only a couple of anglers on there. Kevin Nash was fishing there. I mean, the very nature of the lake, it was really daunting to look at. You'd go down there and the place is full of trees. There's only 3 or 4 swims. I had to dig out a swim, one of the corner snag swim, as it became known. And you only had, when I started fishing there was only 3 carp in the lake. So I fished there from June 90. I lost one on the first session. I was fishing with one of the old famous 5, Ian Guy. He was fishing next to me. Lost the fish that they call rails fish right at the net. The Hooklink broke. I had a little split shot pinched on the Hooklink for
that was a lesson learnt.
Pop-up weight. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I lost it right at the net. It just basically parted. And then me and Trotter saw the fish in the snags because you could basically climb down the bank in one of the corners, and the trees were so close to the bank the fish used to get right in, so you could have scooped them out, not literally, but they were that close to sea. And we actually saw it was sort of laying towards us, and you could see the mustard O'Shaughnessy hook that I was using was neatly embedded in its bottom lip, and you could, as it was opening and closing the mouth, you could see it was still in there.
God.
But do you know what? I wasn't that bothered because if it had been the common, that's a whole different story, but it was that fish. And so I carried on fishing, didn't get any more action. And then in September, I went down there. So I had planned for a week session. And I was looking in the snags and I'd seen the pig and it was like moving about. And it was very agitated. And at one point, I got to see it slow down and it turned on its side. And basically, there was a massive line running down its side, which I can take was like a line cut. It had some scales dislodged round by its tail.
Who lost it?
I have my suspicions who it was, but
Right.
I wouldn't. He's not around anymore to defend himself. But I spoke to one of the kids in the home, and he said he'd seen a guy fishing in the trees, actually standing in the trees, and he said, he was using wire. So it's a bit of a strange story to make up for a small kid. So I guess somebody thought they could get it out by any means possible. But I fished on anyway, and I caught the other carp that was in there, which was a common carp, a little short fat thing, and that was my first 30-pounder, and that was 31 pounds.
Really big fish at the time as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was a right result, to be honest.
Yeah. So you could walk around there all the time, see those fish in the snags. And what was it at night when they were moving out the snags?
Yeah. I mean, they would sit in the corners, one of whatever corner of the lake they chose to sit in. But generally, they were sort of around by the kids' home. That's where I used to see them a lot, and in the car park. And if you knew which bush to look under, you quite often find it. I mean, I used to walk around there all the time, and I used to see the big one all the time. We were literally a couple of feet away from it. It'd be sat under a big branch. You could see its scales, you could see its eyes. And I sat there over the course of a close season. I must have sat with it for quite a few hours, and I sort of convinced myself I was going to catch it. The carp themselves weren't hard to catch. It was just the fishing was hard because they weren't anywhere near your baits most of the time. But they would move out into the lake at night, and I just thought it was just a matter of opportunity. At some point the fish are going to come past where I'm fishing, find my bait and eat it. It's pretty simple fishing, really.
How many bites would you get? Would you expect from that fish each year?
Well, only did 4 captures in its entire life,
and then maybe lost. So it was it was a difficult fish to catch, but more down to the context of the lake.
Yeah,
and
the lake and the conditions were very difficult.
Yeah, it's a freaky lake as well, isn't it? Because you think back then that's like a 65-pound common in a lake nowadays, isn't it? You would think that everybody would just you know, everybody would want to be fishing on that lake to have a bit of that glory.
Well, I think, you know, before I fished it, there was a lot of people fishing there, and I walked around there one day and the entire Famous Five were fishing there.
It was, I mean, in Fox Sport, that was a great chapter.
Yeah.
Zen's
out. Yeah. Zen's chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, they all fished it, but, you know, there's so few fish in the lake, it was difficult fishing. And you had to be committed, I think, to fishing.
How much fishing were you doing on there?
I was fishing. I was working in a shop at the time, so I was fishing my midweek night, and then, you know, maybe a Saturday night. So and then a few holidays. But I mean, I fished 1 year, so from June till end of September, and then I did about 15 to 20 nights, and then I caught it on pretty much the first night back the following season. So didn't do that much time down there for it.
Did you have a strategy or anything for catching that?
Not really. I mean, I introduced a lot of bait. I got it fish feeding in the snags, you know, ripping the bottom up. I fed it a carrier bag full of bait one day, and I just baited, you know, the spots. I mean, you can't put too much bait in there because there's only a couple of 3 fish in there. So I think I used to roll like 30 eggs of bait on a Thursday on my day off, and then introduce it over the next few days, and then do the same again all the way through the close season.
You could see them eating it.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. So was it the situation where the first person that got in there was likely to catch it, or?
Not really. I mean, that season, that close season, before I caught it, I went down before the start of the season 3 days before and slept in my car on the gate to make sure I was number one choice.
Yeah.
And the only other person who came down carp fishing was Kevin Nash. And then there was a couple of kids who were, float fishing, and that was it. We had the lake to ourselves, really.
It's good for you as well, was it? I mean, to be living in Colchester and just happening to have a lake like that with a fish that size in there so close to it. Did that sort of shape the way you ended up fishing? I mean, were you a big fish? Were you interested in just singling out big fish before that?
Not really, no. It's the opportunity. I mean, I'd only been driving a couple of years. I was fishing the Garrison. I'd sort of targeted the big fish in there, and then, you know, the snake pit sort of came up, and there weren't that many big fish to catch really in our area. You know, I caught all the better ones in the Garrison Lake. Loved fishing down there. You know, spent loads of summers down there as a kid, and then moved on to Snake Pit, and then it's just on from there really. You know, other lakes, but you got to remember, when I caught that, there was only, I think, 4 other 40-pound carp in the whole country.
Yeah.
You know, you get that in every lake nowadays.
Yeah. I remember when you caught it.
There.
You caught your first 40 before I caught my first double. We were, 91. I was doing my school exams, and 2 other friends, we had a fishing trip planned to Horseshoe.
Okay.
And it was that. So it was June the 16th.
Yep.
And then it was all over the news, wasn't it? It was a big
story, deal, in the Angling Times and that, you know. Some people didn't like it, you know, and other people were very congratulative, you know, on the local lakes. But
so why didn't people like it?
I don't know. Young lad catches it, you know. There's always a bit of green eye, isn't there, with some people?
It was back in those days. I guess carp anglers were maybe a little bit older, a bit more mature, and people that were fishing for those type of fish then.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's no social media then, was there? So, you know, everything was a bit more secret squirrel.
Yeah. And what about the actual catcher itself? So you got the bite. I mean, did you know what you'd hook straight away? Pretty
much, yeah. You know, it was that evening had been quite windy and overcast. Wind was blowing into the swim, and I'd actually fallen asleep on top of my sleeping bag. In those days, we just had the old 50-inch green new brolly umbrella. You know, and I did have a fox. No, I didn't. I had a normal bed chair, an Argos, you know, ratchet thing that we used to have with 2 covers and a bit of foam in between. And I just remember quite clearly had a couple of beeps on the optonic. Looked out, the monkey had come up. Looked at my watch, thought, it's about 11 o'clock, I think it was, and then it just whizzed off. You know, a Cardinal 55s, 11-pound seal cast. You know. 2 1/4 Tesco rods or 2 3/4 Tesco rods. It was crazy, really.
And terrifying because you've got a good idea what's on the end there.
Yeah.
So your PB before that was that the other common from Snake Pit?
Yeah, 31.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the people around to help you with it when you caught it, and
There was only one other angler on the lake. That was Kevin. He was fishing opposite me, and the fish got snagged up. We could see it sort of wallowing in the moonlight. The water had gone calm then. So with a bit of pulling and tugging, we got it out, and the weed was about a foot from the surface, and you could see the fish as it came past on the surface. Just above the weed in the torchlight. It was quite evident it was that fish. There was nothing else like it. So yeah, Kevin netted it. We unhooked it and then sacked it up, and I remember sitting on my bed chair and I wound in my other rods, or they'd got wound in or whatever, and you could hear the carp. They're crashing out over the other two, whether they were looking for that one, their mate that got lost, or whatever, but you could hear them boshing out over where the bait was. So it was quite a significant night.
Because you said so the fish were always together, so yeah, there's a good chance, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Toby, you got a picture of the snake pit common?
Yeah,
it's quite an iconic picture, isn't it?
Give me 2 secs.
Do you know what we're looking at some of your foreign fish pictures earlier as well, and it's like a 45 pounder just looks
very small.
But at the time, it's still a huge fish now. Look at that.
Yeah, that's that was what was on the cover of Big Carp magazine. That picture. Yeah,
it's a lovely picture.
It's a lovely carp.
Yeah, it was so well proportioned, wasn't it?
Yeah, very unusual. That little dip just by its dorsal fin. It had a very red cheek, big barbels. Yeah, it was an awesome carp. I'm sure that carp would have gone on to be of equal size to Mary, because Pete Springate caught Mary that same year.
Yeah.
At 45 pounds. And then the controlling club that took it over put some carp in there. Excuse me. They put Dippy in there, the Wandering Mirror, and basically they killed all the original stock.
That's what killed them.
Absolutely.
And Dippy went on to, what's £50 fish?
£50, I think.
Yeah, around £50.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely shaped your carp fishing career a little bit, didn't it?
That
catch, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so getting on to some personal stuff. So you don't tend to do this type of thing very often, do you? Are you nervous in front of the camera, or do you purposely just don't like media stuff too much?
I had when Korda was very young, or in its infancy within media and TV and stuff, I used to be behind the camera, so I used to do filming, and then on occasion I would get in front of the camera. But to be honest with you, the guys who do it now, they're so good at it.
Yeah,
I don't really want to do it.
Right.
I don't have to do it, so I choose not to do it.
Right.
Because I'm not that comfortable in front of a camera. Certainly not like Ali and Tom and Spooner. I mean, the brilliant Dan is fantastic at it. So you have to have a very confident personality, I think, in front of the camera to be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not confident, but they're much better at it than I am. So
it's good when you pop up, though, isn't it? Like with the underwater stuff, because you played a bit of a role in that, didn't you? You were on 7 and 8 for.
I was a bit more of an observer, I think, in 7 and 8, and then the ones we did with Dan at Welly, there really wasn't anybody else to do it, so I just got involved.
I'm sure there was a bit more.
But yeah, it was
because there was a bit of a head scratching going on there as well, wasn't there? So yeah. So you showed us some pictures actually this week of your daughter. She's 8 years old.
Yep, my youngest daughter.
Your youngest daughter.
Yep.
And she's already caught some big carp for her age.
Well, she has for her age, yeah. We took her out on Saturday and took her down Layer Pitt. So she christened her new pod that she got from Jim at Jag.
Very nice.
Yeah, so she was really pleased with that because it's got purple bits on it.
Yeah.
And she had her first 20 pounder, which was 22 pounds. So a bit of a battle, really. I had to give her a little bit of a help with the rod. But it's good. It's a family thing, both Toby and Neve, my older children.
What's your personal best, Toby?
Well, Francesca likes to remind me that she's already beaten my personal best, so we can leave it there.
I'm sure she does.
Yeah, she does. She's very humble.
She looks very accomplished with the rod as well, doesn't she? She seems quite natural.
She's very natural. She sort of because my wife fishes as well, but match fishing. So she fished at sort of world class level. So my kids with Wendy are, they really have inherited the natural fishing gene, I think. Well, Francesca certainly has. She's very efficient with a whip and maggots and float fishing. So, you would hope that both of the genes in both of us have got into that to those kids, and fishing they'll find love for it.
I'm sure it has. Were your parents the same with you?
No.
Is that how you got into fishing?
No. My mum's friend, when I was at secondary school, she was doing like a Provident round or something, and she had met this lady called Yvonne, and Yvonne had a son who was into fishing. I was into fishing, and my mum and Yvonne became friends, so I became friends with Darren, and then we were fishing together really. So we started fishing. This was in primary school. So we were fishing down the rivers in Colchester, and it was there actually we were fishing by a place called North Bridge, and we sat there fishing for gudgeon or whatever came along with the floats, when the few people on the bridge started sort of looking down in the water and pointing, and these 3 carp came past our floats. And that was basically it. We were like, what are they? Never seen a carp before, and I'm sure they were like £5 or £6, but they could have been £200. We just stood there, gobs open, and the people were all staring and pointing at the fish in the river. From that moment on, we wanted to catch a carp. So Darren found a club called Caps, which had layer pits. They had quite a good junior section at the time, so we fished a few matches and started going down layer pits to start carp fishing. And in fact, the first time we went, I caught my first carp, which was £7. And I pointed that swim out to Francesca on Saturday, actually.
Did you?
This is where I caught my first carp. It weighed £7. And it was like, £7, which we caught on a half a ready salted peanut.
Yeah.
And, we'd read about peanuts in carp fever. And, weighed it in a carrier bag. So it was all good stuff.
Yeah. So you pretty much got straight into carp fishing then, really?
Pretty much. We read carp fever and boilies and all that sort of thing.
So not much pleasure fishing before that?
Yeah, we did a fair bit of pleasure fishing. We weren't very successful at it, I don't think.
Right.
We just used to catch loads of gudgeon and stuff and go with our mates. But
easier to catch carp?
It would seem so. Layer Pits was a fantastic lake to fish. It was absolutely rammed with them. This is the days of carp anglers where they wouldn't speak to you, like in the 80s. I remember seeing somebody with some anti-tangle tubing on their rod and thinking, what is that? And we saw a guy called John from Chelmsford. I still remember him. I've still got the photo. I took a photo of him. He caught the biggest fish in the lake, a fish called Fred. It was like a 32-pound mirror along the right-hand side. And, that was sort of, they were changing, they were really important moments in my fishing career. You see a carp like that and you think, I really want to catch something like that.
It was a good time to start carp fishing as well, wasn't it? We were kind of, the commercialisation had started, but it hadn't gone over the top, and you still had to work things out for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, commercialisation, I wouldn't say it was that commercialised. I think you've got a few companies making, Gardner making rod pods and a few people making carp rods, and you generally, I got my first set of carp rods, I went to the local tackle shop and they made them for me. They used to sell blanks, and the guy who built them for me still works in there. He's still in there. But it was every evening after school, we'd get the bus in and sit in the tackle shop, go through all the carp books, punish the boys behind the desk all evening until they shut up, and we'd go home. We were like sponges. We just wanted to learn about tackle, about carp, anything. And it was overlay. It was quite difficult to get anything out of anybody because we were like, we were young kids, we were like punishers. But a few of them, were really helpful. They put us on the right road. Well,
you need to do that, don't you? I mean, I remember I think where you grew up was important for carp fishing then as well. I mean, like layer pits, there's a lot of what's the word? Changes going on with tackle and stuff, and people are adapting to new methods and stuff, and just to be around all that, be able to watch all that. And it was the same for me on going to Horseshoe Lake, where people would be using washing up bottles, cutting half of spoms, and all that stuff. So it was quite important where you were fishing at the time then to be able to have access to anglers that were more experienced that you could kind of feed off of.
The thing is, if you're not catching anything, you're not learning anything, and that's still the case now. Yeah. So I remember we went to a slideshow in Colchester, the old Bellevue Club, and Roger Smith and Bob Jones were doing the slideshow. Obviously, it was about Savay, so it was they were in the Carp Strikes Back, Bob's Beastie and Smithy with Sally and all that sort of thing. So me and my mates were all sat at the front listening intently to everything they were saying. And I remember Dave Woods was sitting behind me, Jim Martinez, I know Woodsy quite well now. And they were all part of that scene. You know? Anyway, Roger and Bob were going on about this 10 and 6 mix and this rig they were using. So at the end of the thing, they never give anything away. They mentioned, I thought they said Sense Apple, but as it turns out, it was Sense Appeal. Right? So I went up to Smithy and said to him, what's this bait you're talking about, this 10 and 6? Anyway, he wrote it down, obviously soy flour and semolina. With Sense Appeal, we said, when Hutchie brings it out, you must have a go with it. It's really good. And he showed us the his sliding blowback rig thing. I can't remember what it was. Which we didn't really use that. But the 10 and 6 mix suddenly made boilie production very very economical for us to make lots of boilies and catch lots more carp, because we could just spend our pocket money on some semolina and soy flour, get some flavouring, and it was brilliant. So thank the pair of them, God bless their souls, but that made a difference to us. Our summer holidays were spent rolling boilies and catching carp.
And I guess with we become mindful of that, don't we, when we see young people fishing? Probably not so much for me. They don't really want to learn too much from me, do they? But I
thought you was on a special list. You weren't allowed to hear any children.
Probably. But I mean, it is, isn't it? Is it? I thought you'd want to just drop that one in somewhere. But no, it is, isn't it? It's important to try and pass down what you know and help people. Bit different nowadays, isn't it? With social media, and there's so much more access out there to information nowadays.
You can literally walk into a tackle shop, buy everything you need, go on YouTube.
Can you go closer to the mic? The mics have just
you can go into a tackle shop.
Mics are off.
No, they're all fine, mate.
Okay. Not on here, they're not.
No?
Yeah, you could just no.
I can hear you.
I can't hear you. Toby, we need to look at this mic.
Mate, everything's fine.
Can I
I'm getting levels, mate. Go on.
Yeah, I just can't hear myself through the mic. This is we talk about car crashes on podcasts.
Yeah.
But it makes it a little bit more natural as well, doesn't it? I like it.
Yeah.
Think on our feet a minute. Toby's
I've got no reason as to why you wouldn't be able to hear you. So.
Okay, well, as long as you can still hear me anyway.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so it's important, but there's information so much more readily available, isn't it? And back in those days, I remember fishing a lake up from me, and I went round there one Sunday, and there was a guy that said he was going to be on there for the whole week.
Yeah.
So I befriended him, and every day I would just go up there for the whole week and sit with him and punish him to death, but learn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we learned by punishing the boys down layer.
Punish them.
Yeah, punish them. Yeah. There was another boy called Franny Wagner. He taught us about boilies and rigs and stuff like that. He used to go down there on his moped every day. He's a lovely old man, and he really showed us how to catch some carp. But those days they sort of set the pace for my fishing, and eventually come to Korda, because you had to make a bit of gear yourself or adapt something, or nothing was ever a standard issue. And even now, everything I've got is been pretty much messed about with or changed in some way. It's but that's part of the development process for making stuff a Korda, or the way that my career's gone, really. Yeah,
though it's quite ironic that, actually, isn't it, that's how things would actually, you've got a quote here, Damo, in the chapter Telling Tales. Oh, I can hear myself again now. What did you press then? Did you just plug me back in again?
No, it's just come back just like that.
Wow, look at that. You describe fishing as when all your worlds come together, when work, life and fishing all become one. That's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose that's working here was probably the best move I ever made. But when I first started, I thought it was the worst thing I'd ever done.
Right.
We worked in sheds, the roof leaked, we had rats infested, over some of the stuff. There was very few people there, but as the company's grown and I've grown, I've never had a day where I woke up and thought, don't want to go into work. I love my job, and I love the people that I work with, and I'm very, very fortunate to have a good job surrounded by good people.
Yeah, we all have aspirations, don't we? When we're, ideally in an ideal world, we all want a job that we love doing, and then we want to be financially secure enough as well, don't we?
Absolutely.
So when you joined Korda, did you envisage that you would be able to get those things for yourself?
At that point in my life, I didn't earn very much money. I had to get a loan to buy a van to come to Korda. Basically, I'd seen a job application for a PA for Danny, and I thought I'd already spoke to Solar prior to that. I thought I wanted to get into a manufacturing company, something that you could have an influence on. So it had to be a small enough company to be able to have an influence on. So when I saw the job come up for Korda, I thought, well, I'll just go for that and get a foot in the door and see where it leads. So I ended up going for the interview. There was Dan's dad.
Did you know Danny very well?
Not really. I knew him in passing. I know one of the guys who works here, Neil Raisin, he knew Dan, and I'd seen Dan round Neil's house a couple of times, but not really. So I didn't really know too much, but, I worked in the tackle shops, and we sold Korda. It was always very successful. If we had it on the shelves, it sold. It was a good product. So went for the interview. There was Dan's dad, Chris and Steve, who were directors at the time. Got absolutely grilled for what felt like about 2 hours. And then I started working there, I think in the October of, I want to say 2001, I think. And the company was very, very, very different. We had just a few products, mainly leads, some terminal, and myself and my ex-wife, we had very little in the way of income compared to what we lived in a rented house and that sort of thing. So it was a big step to buy a car, get a loan, and go and work there. But through hard work and the right opportunities, the company has grown, and certainly never envisaged it to be what it is now. I mean, we've got 104 staff that work out of here. I think there's 45 work in Europe, and it's just a beast.
But you kind of approached Korda with a different. I mean, Danny was on the previous podcast, and he was talking about Danny wanted to be wealthy, didn't he? He was ambitious to be, wealthy and secure. I mean, that wasn't necessarily the same for you.
No, it wasn't. All I ever wanted, and I've said this to several people, was to be able to pay my bills and not have to worry about it. Pay my bills, go out for a meal at the weekend, and I'll be happy with that. And that's, what more could you want? I know Dan wanted, when I was working for him, he wanted the time to be able to go fishing and do whatever he wanted, and that is exactly what's happened. So do
you think with anglers that start up fishing companies, I mean, a lot of them kind of want to go fishing, don't they? So they're setting this a fishing business up with the intention mainly of having more time to go fishing. Was that
well, I think by the time I joined the company had been going about 9 or 10 years, so it was well on the way. I mean, the first year I joined, we turned over that year that I joined, I think we turned over £600,000. The following year was $1 million, and then we had landmark events which helped grow our turnover and our public persona, if you like. In them days we were doing on the page advertising. Very soon after I started, I didn't end up being Dan's PA. I ended up doing product. We rebranded the company. We designed the wide gape hook, the long shank, the spod that we had, then the underwater film. So it was pretty quick. Things changed.
Yeah. Did you have much of a product development team then? Because I know you think an awful lot about your angling, don't you? You're very creative about and innovative. With your rigs and everything. I mean, you strike me as someone that's got. I know you've got a very sort of an engineering mindset.
Yeah, I haven't got any engineering qualifications, but it's really just common sense. I've worked with engineers for a lot. I know the basics. I know what can be made and what can't be made, and if I don't know about it, we'll find out about it. But yeah, I just in the beginning there was just me and Danny, and there was Chris and Steve, And Steve had come up with the funnel web, which was another landmark product that we should have patented, which we didn't. You know, and we're just anglers going fishing and trying to make something better that we already had. You know? And that's pretty much what most anglers do, who are, you know, working in the shed and making tackle and all that sort of thing. They're just designing stuff for themselves to improve their thing. So, you know, that's pretty much been what's been happening throughout the course of my career at Korda. It's just the idea.
That sounded like quite a... Would that have been quite a stressful period for you?
In the beginning?
I mean, obviously, with the company being small and trying to be, you know, self-sustain yourselves. You know, was it a difficult time or
not really
an exciting period?
It's exciting because it was a beginning of something, and you know, we probably didn't see what was happening. We were a little Fred in the shed at the time, you know, and everybody loves the underdog. You know, and I think Dan has mentioned this before, you know, but when you get to your company gets bigger and bigger and you get a bit more corporate, you get a bit more commercial, you know, we were forever getting criticised for ruining carp fishing because we're showing people how to carp fish. And Dan's always been about giving information. So if it puts more fish on the bank for other people, then, you know, that's what we're here to do, you know, and, you know, don't get us wrong, there is a commercial element to that. You know, they are seeing the tackle that we're making, and we are making money from that. But, you know, I've got 104 families that I am responsible for making sure that they're getting paid every month, and we can continue, you know, to keep them employed. So there is a huge responsibility. Even from when we were small, I've always felt that responsibility. You know, I didn't have that responsibility until Dan put me in charge, which was when the other two guys left. And then from that moment on, really, I felt like, you know, I had a bit more free rein to do what I wanted to do, employ the right people, and the company, you know, it made a difference because of the people we employed. Yeah.
A balance of characters as well, a balance of different people to be able to do different jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're very methodical, and If you've got kind of like daily routines that you follow, not just within fishing, but routines that help you, do you need everything pre-planned?
No, I'm really not that. I would say I'm very level-headed. I'm very consistent in my moods, so I'm pretty easygoing.
Right.
I rarely get stressed, because I think as a person, as a leader, as someone that people are looking up to, not for what I'm doing, but because I'm in charge of the company, you have to be consistent and level. So, you know, I don't have any routines every day. I go to the gym in the morning, which clears my head, you know, and I feel better for it. But that's about it, really. You know, I like to go around, visit everybody, make sure everybody's all right, have conversations with people. You know, just be part of it. I'm like to be the grey man because we employ the managers and the guys. You know, they're the guys who are running their departments, and they just need steering. You know, the ship sails itself pretty much now. It just needs a little push back in the right direction sometimes.
So you haven't had to shape your personality or, you know, or your work ethic into the role.
Not work ethic. I think we've all had to change as the company's got bigger because, you know, when we first started, we were all lads. You know, lads with lads banter, lads sense of humour, you know, anything goes when you've got like a bunch of young lads. And, you know, we're all a bit disruptive. And as we've grown older, we've had to learn that, you know, you can't do some of those things, you know. You have to be more politically correct, you know. And, I'm 47 years old. So, you know, I've got to be more sensible, you know. But, no, it's been a steep learning curve, really, for both me and Dan, because obviously Dan's the CEO of our companies. I'm the managing director of this one, so there is a huge amount of responsibility upon our shoulders. We've got, you know, a large warehouse with vehicles, big, you know, warehouse trucks and all that sort of thing. If someone gets killed, me and him are our heads are on the block. Right. You know, that's it. So, you know, you have to look out for the company, you have to look out for the staff. You know, it's just what comes with the territory.
It comes with it, yeah. I wonder whether that, you both envisaged, that you'd have that sort of responsibility when you were 19, 20 years old, that you'd have to look after that many people.
I didn't, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And neither of us are trained in anything like this either. So we've had to learn as we go along, and we've got there. So
key lessons. So if you were going to pass on some key lessons to your kids, well, one of them's, he's not a kid, is he? He's an adult now, isn't he?
No. I think got to be open-minded.
Yeah.
Got to listen. People who talk too much tend not to listen.
Oh dear.
And also, if you're looking for a job, get a job you love doing, because you're going to have to do it for the whole of your working life.
Yeah.
And do something you really enjoy, because then you'll be good at it. If you're passionate about it, you can see only good things can come from it.
So it's I think bringing out your kids, isn't it? It's about giving them some direction, and
a good work ethic,
and understand themselves and know what they need from life, and
Absolutely.
then just focus towards what they want, really.
Yeah, and happiness. You've got to be happy in what you're doing.
Contentment, isn't it?
And people find happiness in different things. I get a lot of happiness just fishing.
Yep.
Get out on the bank. That's just clears my mind. I love it. I don't get to fish as much as people probably think I do. 1 or 2 nights every other week. That's enough for me at the moment. I've got a 3-year-old. He's pretty demanding. When he's grown up a little bit, then maybe I'll get out a bit more.
Yeah. I mean, any down periods, since you started here, that you could spring to mind, or
down periods? What? As
in, just through life, where maybe fishing was a nice salvation for you.
Well, when I split up with my first wife, that was difficult, a very difficult period. I've got very close to a couple of people who worked here, and one of them left under a bit of a dark cloud, and that was tough, really difficult, because when you get so close to somebody, and they're you have to choose a side between either him or Danny. I've built this company with Dan, and Wendy, my wife, will tell you. I told her in the beginning, never make me choose between you and the company, because the company would always win.
Really?
Absolutely. I put life and soul into this, and the people here, and that was a bit of a dark time, and fishing was a bit of a relief for me then.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a salvation to be able to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what fishing's great for, isn't it? Just being able to escape.
Great leveler.
Absolutely.
People from every walk of life, you're all the same, aren't you? When you're sitting down trying to catch a carp.
So many different people that you're going to meet along the way as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
A question I was going to ask Danny, actually, the slogan, the thinking tackle slogan, and the logo. Where did all that come from?
Well, that came from John Hannant.
Yeah.
A really talented graphic designer who, when I first started, we looked at rebranding, and he came, because Dan used to wear the glasses a bit like Chris Evans. So at the end of the Chris Evans, is it Friday night?
TFI Friday.
TFI Friday. His production company had the glasses at the end of the thing. So that came in. So Dan's glasses, we're thinking about tackle, Korda thinking.
Do you have to sit down for very long and, discuss that? I mean...
well, when I used to work with John all the time, John would come up with some absolute blinders, but he would come up with some really terrible ones as well. But if you threw it back to him, it's like the Guru logo. What I was thinking of for that was a bit like the Ericsson logo. So like a sphere that we could use, that we could animate, for TV and that sort of thing. It might spin round, and then John got it. The next one that came was the sort of the yin and yang fish logo, and that was brilliant. And he's got a very, very imaginative mind, John.
Yeah.
And
sorry, was that his job?
Yeah, we hired him.
Just to do that.
Yeah, just to do that. He became a really good friend, John. He did all Lockie's advertising, all his packaging.
Did he do Lockie's slogan as well, or was that?
Yeah, I think Martin had a bit of a advertising background. I think he come up with it, but John did all the stuff. I think Martin come up with the solar logo, but certainly John did all the advertising for him. And it's very catchy. The girl with. I think there's some birds and that in some of his.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah,
we had one.
What's I got?
Yeah, John did a really sort of controversial advert for us. We had a bear trap one, and we had we had a loaded gun, and there was a picture of the gun, and you could see in the chamber, it was a revolver. There was it was the back of the gun, the revolver, and you had little bullets, and they had the Korda glasses on them, and it was like no more blanks. But yeah, we got in a bit of trouble with that one.
Couldn't do that one.
Well, it went out, but we had a few people complain about it. We were promoting firearms and stuff that just didn't get it.
Yeah, but political correctness.
Yeah,
crazy.
Gone mad. Really.
God, blimey.
But yeah.
What about? Were there any opportunities that Korda kind of missed out on?
Where you going with this? Are you going with the SPOM?
Maybe.
Well, from my memory of this episode, I believe they came to us with a product which was an opening bait rocket design, but it certainly wasn't the product that they came, which is out on the market now. So yeah, we probably did miss out on that one. That's quite a big one. Yeah, fair play to them. They've got a great product there.
They have, and when you look at that, I mean, I remember when that first came out and just looking at that, and it didn't look that much at the time, did it? But it's changed fishing.
The thing was, with our fishing, we were, me and Dan. When I first started at Korda, I was a boilie angler, but within a couple of years, seeing Chris and Steve and Dan fishing at Mercer's, fishing with, big beds of particle and absolutely smashing them and smashing good fish, a lot of 30-pounders. I had my head turned by it, so we started designing the first Skyliner spod. So when we were fishing with them, we were laying them down on their side at 120 yards, whatever, and they're not making any noise. Then this bomb comes along, and it's like, it's like a massive rat trap going off every time, but it doesn't seem to scare the carp, does it?
No. It's that sound, the association with the sound as well.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else? Is that the only one that really?
We get a lot of people come to us with ideas. Probably 3 or 4 a week, maybe. Right. But from memory, you put me on the spot. I can't really remember, to be honest. My memory's not that good. But one of the best ones is the HeliSafe. A guy called Ross came to us with it. As soon as I saw it, he had a working sort of model of it. It was just like, we've got to have that. That has solved the problem. And we had been working on that problem as well for about a year and not come anywhere near it. I looked at it and thought, the way the gate opened, I just didn't think the lead would stay in it. But as soon as we used it, me and Dovey went to Sandhurst and tested it. It was like, this is a game changer.
It's still a bit of a mystery now, actually. When you put that on there, when you clip that on, I mean, that gate is very, very tight, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
How did he come to that conclusion that would?
Well, I don't know how he got to that conclusion, but he just felt that it would work. The lead would stay in through inertia, and it wouldn't, because it opens on the cast and then it closes again. And he made a model and he proved it. So, it was.
So was he right down the line with that when he came to you?
He had an injection molded product that didn't, in principle, it looked like ours, but the actual finished product, our finished product, looked nothing like his initial product. We strengthened up a few bits and we put a couple of other. There's like a little lug which allows you to align it a bit easier. No, brilliant product. I absolutely love using that.
Yeah, that's one of the good ones. The kit that goes. We're not in this to market Korda tackle.
No, we're not.
But there have been some key, innovations with the company, haven't there? And obviously that, with fish safety as well. That was a big plus.
Absolutely.
Wasn't it?
We were in a really fortunate position where Dan trusts myself and Tom. We can spend anything that we would like to spend as long as there's a return on that investment. And the Kamakura hooks, that was a good few years of investment without any return. And I think I don't think any other fishing company would have done that, but they would have ploughed in the amount of money we put into it. Purely because, Dan's an angler. He appreciates how sharp hooks catch more fish. We all appreciated it, and we wanted it in our fishing, and we could see that there would be a market for it, and so we went for it, and it's a difficult process to undertake.
Yeah, sharp hooks, Damo, for sure. And so with rigs and bait. So whereabouts are you on all that? Because we do fish together a little bit, and we learn off each other, don't we? But carry on. You've learnt a lot.
Yeah, I've learnt.
I know you've learnt an awful lot from me over the years.
Yeah, a lot of things what you shouldn't do and stuff like that. But there you go.
But with rigs and bait, I mean, do you have a kind of a go-to on rigs, or?
I'm a bit of a slow. I'm slow on the uptake. The boys have been on goo for years and years and years. I still don't really use it. The crank, Dovey takes great delight in telling me that it's the best-selling hook we sell. I did the wide gape, which was the best-selling hook for years. But fair play to him. That's a fantastic hook. That crank, and I've used it quite a lot this year, and I've had some good fish on it. It's. But
do you know, for me with that hook now, and not just cranks, but any offset hook, that's opened my eyes a little bit to the offset. It opens the hook up so much, doesn't it? With an offset,
it does. Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, getting back to your initial question.
Yeah.
My rigs, I tend to use very the same stuff for the same sort of situations. So I have my maggot rig, I've got my boilie rig, I've got my pop-up rig, and I don't really tend to worry too much about it. I change the length on that a bit. I think we all fish far too heavy, and when we could get away with a lot lighter.
You honestly, do you think we would get more? But I mean, cause especially now where we're using, heavy boom sections, and hooks seem to be getting bigger and bigger. I mean,
yeah, but I think that's the heavy boom section is for the stiffness, and not for the fact that you need to use something that it breaks 50 pounds. It's because it's stiff. I think you could get away with using 15-pound hook links on pretty much most lakes.
But don't you think it's been proven now that we can go in with quite crude methods nowadays, and we're fishing for big fish that are a little bit clumsy and.
Absolutely. I think if you're using a bigger hook, it's harder to get rid of, isn't it? It goes in the mouth. It's more likely to take hold in the fish's mouth, especially with something like the Ronnie rig. Using the crank. I mean, I've been using that on my maggot fishing this year, and I've had fish that are hooked 5 inches back. I've had to try and get a size 4 out by its teeth, which is just mad. And
you've changed your mindset on that, because I know last year you were using quite small hooks with maggots, weren't you?
Yeah,
that was always been there. Yeah,
size 8s and that. And in fact, this year I'd caught a fish on my standard maggot rig, and for some reason I just thought I'm going to change this. In the middle of the night, I tied up one of Dovey's rigs, 7 inches of boom, size 4 crank on a spinner, few maggots on it, put it out. 2 hours later, I had a bite on it, and then I caught a few on it, and I got loads of confidence in doing it. I'm sold on it now, to be honest.
So you use that rig for the majority of your fishing now?
I would, for fishing with bottom baits or with slow sinking wafters or whatever. I definitely think about using it. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think the critical things with rigs are, it's got to push away from the lead. You've got to have instant contact with the weight, and it really depends on what direction the carp picks the rig up from as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. What about line lay, and how you present, how you try and set line lay up, and how conscious are you of trying to set up in the swim and not let the carp know that you're there too much?
It's pretty difficult these days, isn't it? Because I fish with fluorocarbon a lot, so I like it to be laying down in the water if I can. But when you're fishing at anything over 20 yards, and you've got weed and gravel bars or features, you've got no chance, have you? You can think it's laying on the bottom, but it's going to be
probably not, is it?
It's probably not. And on the big pits that we fish, you get a bit of wind on there, a bit of undertow. You've got to have a tightish line. You're fishing in the weed, you're getting lots of liners. The fish are swimming into your line. If you're catching fish, it's not making any difference, is it? In an ideal world, everybody would have their line pinned to the bottom, wouldn't they?
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally, yeah.
I guess with fluorocarbon as well, there's that lack of stretch. I mean, it's a lot more sensitive, isn't it, when you're fishing with it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I just use the 12-pound for everything, and I've fished lakes in France for big uns up against snags. There's very little stretch in it. Never had any problems with it at all.
Well, we've been doing tests here with fluorocarbon, and I've mentioned them to you, and fluorocarbon obviously breaks a little bit lower. It hasn't got the knot strength, but it's so consistent. Really consistent.
Yeah, and it seems to, because it's not hydroscopic, it's not drawing any water in. it seems to last a lot longer on the reel than standard nylon. Doesn't seem to be affected by UV quite so badly. I think it's a great product. Whoever's you use, you know.
Yeah. But you are quite. I mean, you're quite stealthy in your approach, though, aren't you? I mean, I know you're set up in a swim. I know a few weeks ago you were setting up in a swim, weren't you? And you go in there with a little spom, don't you? And you're still very mindful of trying to creep up on them.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, that particular session was when I was in the Cottage Bay. Yeah, I mean, I was fishing very short, wasn't I? I was fishing with maggots, and I was fishing with a very small spod, one of our little spods, taped up. Yeah, I don't want to.
Why'd you tape it up again?
Because it's full of holes, so I like to put the maggots in it because it's only very small. It's only sort of 5 or 6 inches long. It's not heavy enough to get out there, so I fill it with water and it holds the bait in. Right. And you can, stop it with a rod and lay it down so it just kisses the water. And, there are fish bubbling up either side of where I was fishing. I was only fishing, I don't know what it was, 9 or 10 wraps out. So very short. It's just stealth-like, isn't it? It's just
well,
not advertising the fact you're there if you can get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can be quiet and stealthy, I mean, it's better than going in there, well, like me, really, and just steaming into the swim a little bit more, less subtly.
But that works sometimes, doesn't it, Simon? It does work, but I just think fishing's pretty simple, isn't it? You find your fish, put your rigs out, give them the right amount, give them the right bait, and the right amount of bait that goes into the swim. And that's it, really.
So going on to bait a little bit, because I mean, the last year or so, I think I've learnt more about bait in the last 12 months. We were always just boilie anglers. We've been boilie anglers for so many years, and there have been a few sessions that have kind of changed my mind a little bit on bait. Do you wanna talk a bit about bait and what you're preferring to fish with at the moment? Reasons why?
Well, at the moment, I rarely use a boilie at the moment, just because, one, I'm fishing at Saussaie Lake. Last year, we had a year where there was no weed in the lake whatsoever. The natural food was obviously everywhere. The carp were absolutely switched onto it. I think it was the worst season's fishing on record ever for the lack of carp caught. And I was getting on fish regularly and not catching anything. And then one particular session, I had, an awful lot of carp over where I was fishing with boilies. And, long story short, I decided that I was going to change my tactics in the morning to fish with maggots. Now, I'd already fished maggots for a whole winter and caught nothing on them. With the rest of the
can't catch them on maggots.
Yeah, with the rest of the syndicate telling me that I'm wasting my time, and I'm like, no, I'm going to catch one. There's no carp that are around that don't eat maggots. And that's my experience of it. You can catch them anywhere on maggots. But Saussaie Lake, they did not want to eat them that particular year. So, but I had carp sheeting up on me 20 yards out, quite evidently right over my boilie hook baits, and not getting anything happen. And there was loads of carp there. So, went to the tackle shop.
I saw it.
Bought a gallon of reds.
Yeah.
Put 3 rods out on a very small strip of gravel in the swim. It was a very, cast out there a couple of times to try and find a bit of hard bottom. Found it, marked the line, put 3 out, put half a gallon of maggots out there. 3 in the morning, first take, had the biggest fish in the lake, 50 pounder. And then another 2 takes within the next sort of 5 hours. Unfortunately lost both of them. One of them was a very good fish, and then continued to use the maggots, much to the disbelief of my friend Jordan. And
I hope he's listening to this.
Yeah, and I had a really good season. I had a couple of 40s and another 30, and
it continued, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
And the majority of the fish for the rest of the for the rotors, it was pretty much maggots, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you still think that you need to go in with big quantities of maggots?
I don't think you need to use big quantities of maggots. I think you have to judge each session and each area you're fishing. Yep. Every time you go, if you're fishing short and you can see them, and you can get away with putting very little bait out. But a lot of the time I fish trammed up. So trammed up means having 2 or 3 rigs on the same spot, probably within 3 or 4 feet of each other, very, very tight, even at range at 120 yards. So I'm expecting a few fish to come in the swim. If you get one come in, it's very unlikely you're going to catch it. If you've got 10 come in the swim, you've got to have feed out there for a good few fish. You've got competitive feeding.
Have you got any numbers in your head? How much feed? So, because we tend to fish, don't we? If we're getting bites on there, we're tending to think that there's a good few fish over us.
Yeah, it really depends. A few years ago, Dan asked me on one of the thinking tackles, I think it was, why did you just do that? I couldn't give him an answer because I didn't know why I did it, because I just instinctively did it, and I can't explain to you why I did it. But sometimes, you've put bait out onto the area, you've had a bite, but your instinct is telling you if you put any more bait out there, you are going to scare those fish. So leave it. And I'll get another one on the other rod, and then maybe you think, well, they're probably eating all that, so I'll put 3 spots out, whatever it is, just enough to top it up to get a bit of interest back in the swim. And then if you get another bite, put another 3 in, and it's better to put less in. So 3 is a good number for me, or 6, depending on what feed you're putting out. If you're putting boilies out or whatever, you might want to put less out, because 6 sponfuls of 14 millers is quite a lot of bait. But with natural bait, like hem and maggots and casters and stuff, I don't think you can put too much out. Sometimes if they're in the swim, they're in the area, you can certainly get them into a proper frenzy.
You think they're feeding on maggots pretty much the same way they would feed on hemp or those type of small particles? Absolutely. Where they're just, so ideally, like a rig setup wise, would you ideally like to go for a shorter hook link as well on that?
I used to.
Yeah.
Up to this season, I was using 5 inches. Was a pretty standard setup for me. But with the Ronnie spinner, whatever you want to call it, rig, I've been using 7 inches because it's so stiff and so it's always ready to get them, isn't it?
It's a very industrial setup, isn't it? Yeah. But it's kind of poised, isn't it, to hook
like a
fish?
Trap.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, definitely.
And with a big sharp hook, we put a bit of putty around the crimp, so it's pulling the hook down. Yeah, it's you just got to look at what Tom catches. He catches absolutely loads on that rig. Whatever bait he's using, whether he's using a ring of tigers, a boilie, maggots, worm, whatever, it works for everything. Yeah,
good universal rig, definitely. I've had to move off of my old Thriller rigs as a result of that. Yeah, which is a shame, really, isn't it?
You can't help being influenced by your
Michael Jackson.
You're funny, he worked in the office. We're surrounded by carp anglers, aren't we? So it's if somebody's having results on something, it soon spreads around. The little maggot thing that went on last year end up spreading across quite a few Colne Valley lakes and tearing them up.
Yeah, so there's a few anglers out there smelling the marigolds a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about Wendy then? Because she's a world-class match angler. So do you spend evenings at home with her talking about, right, what do I need to be doing here with bait, and what? Do you turn to her for help?
Advice sometimes on bait.
Yeah, okay.
On bait. Yeah. Live bait, maggots. We've flirted with bloodworm and that sort of thing, which is she's an expert in doing that. That's her field. So pole fishing with very small bait in the winter, she's brilliant at that. That's what she's good at. And ground bait design. She used to work for a bait company, so she used to design ground baits. Yeah, she's a good angler.
Handy person to be living with.
To know, yeah. She's got a few contacts, so it's good.
Yeah.
But I've started doing a bit of match fishing now anyway. But for carp. Fishing with the Guru boys on a seat box, and I love it. Fishing with a bomb and pellet, feeding and feeder fishing. I've got a distinct advantage over the other boys. I can cast 120 metres with a feeder sitting down on the seat box. When them boys are having to stand up and whack them out.
Wow, that's a long way.
Yeah, it's a long way. But in some of them big pits, you need to be out there on that sort of distance. So there's a good crossover, and it keeps you thinking. Especially about bait and feed and when to put it in and when not to put it in.
Does she keep you thinking then? I mean,
Wendy?
does she know
what's toes? That's for sure.
Yeah. in more domestic kind of areas as
Yeah,
well. But
absolutely.
but it's handy. So with groundbait, you did mention you incorporating a bit of groundbait nowadays. Is it something that we're overlooking a little bit?
I've used groundbait a fair bit in my spod mixes, but I used to use liquidised cell, was really good.
Yeah.
Like blended right down and then sieved. That really hangs in the water. That's a really good clouding agent. Or I've just been using a bit of dirt, a bit of molehill or worm cast or something like that.
Why do you think that's working so well?
I think you get a fantastic cloud off it. It's like a reddy brown worm infused.
You're getting the scent from the soil.
Yeah, scent from the soil. Yeah, scent from heaven.
Scent from heaven. Yeah, there's something in that.
I think so. I don't think you can compete with natural baits. I really don't. Some of them guys are fishing with worm and that, they're catching ridiculous amounts of carp in these BCAC matches and stuff.
Yeah.
You're
very meticulous the way you prepare that soil as well, aren't you? Sieve it out and spend. It's
easier to spod. It's easier to get in the spod if there's a bit of air in it.
Yeah.
So it's just like groundbait. They do like a blender thing. You can fit on a drill. You can whiz it up, get some air in it, and it just fills up much easier. So, preparation is everything, Simon.
Well, I'm
As
learning.
You know,
yeah. Well, I know how much preparation you put into your fishing. It makes me feel a little bit ashamed at times because you times it a bit of a premium, isn't it? So
it really is, yeah.
You very much plan your sessions ahead. And
I plan for every eventuality.
Yes,
So
it's like a Himalayan expedition.
A little bit, yeah. Because the last thing I want to do is, you get a weed berg, a massive raft of weed going through your swim, taking out all 3 lines, which does happen on occasion, doesn't it? And you have to basically re-spool everything. Well, the worst thing that can happen is you have to mess around trying to put line back on your reels. I've got 6 spare spools of that line on in my bag, ready to go if that happens. Just as it's getting dark, and my gear's ready. I've got to be ready to go, otherwise it just throws me out.
Is that being tailored around the fact that you haven't got very much time, or have you always been like that?
I've always been like that. Dan said once, if we've got to go into war, I'm going with Damo because he's going to have the best guns and he's going to be the most well prepared. And that's absolutely true. If I go to France, I've got everything is ready.
Yeah.
Cups are clean, tea bag container is
No,
filled.
I've seen it. It's ridiculous actually, but but it seems to work, doesn't it?
It does. It works for me. Yeah.
Should we get on to Saussaie? We've got to talk about Saussaie, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've known each other for a few years because we probably fish on the greatest lake in
the world, in the universe,
in the whole universe, and the best rotor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're both toads. So what was your first association with Saussaie?
I fished it back in '95, I think it was, when Banksy was fishing it. The owner, Tom Banksy, was fishing there on days as well. Fished it for a year, did 40 days on there, and then caught a couple. So I caught one in September.
Done well, didn't you, to catch a couple?
Which was the lagerfish, very famous carp that. There's a big picture of it on my office wall with Mike Wilson holding it. The Carp Fisher #1 cover, and that carp still lives in the lake.
Iconic picture.
Yeah, very iconic, very carpy picture, wasn't it? The carpy jumper and all that.
Yeah.
But I saw that fish in the water a couple of days ago. He still looks in fine condition. And
How old is he?
He's got to be over 60. He's probably 70 years old, isn't he? That one.
Yeah.
He's been in many nets over the years, hasn't he?
Been in mine.
Yeah.
Twice.
Is he? He's obviously losing his marbles in his old age.
He's getting too old, isn't he?
Too old for it. We should retire him.
He's a tasteless blind carp that can't
possibly
distinguish.
Possibly. So So then I didn't fish the lake after that because I met my first wife, had children and all that sort of thing, and then ended up getting back in contact with Tom. Well, he got into contact with me actually.
Were you renewing your day ticket at the time?
No, I wasn't. No, Tom had actually come up with a rig device for dropping the lead at the same time as we had the heli-save.
Oh, really?
And we were looking into the thing, so I had a meeting with him. Blah blah.
Tom approached you.
Yeah.
Ah.
And then we got talking around his house, and the threat of HS2 and the end of Saussaie was sort of on the distant horizon. So he offered me a season ticket and went down there for a year, did a few sessions down there, and I was very lucky. He offered me a night ticket the year after. So that was about 5 years ago, I think, 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, you've been on No, you've been on 7 years. This is my 6th year on the
Is it
syndicate.
right? Okay.
Yeah. HS2 woke us up a little bit because I always grew up, with the dream to fish Sauvie.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realise is it's a very liberal lake to fish, isn't it? It's not dead man's shoes or closed doors to anybody.
No, I've read on the forums,
Rubbish.
Very
isn't it?
limited fishing. It's open to anyone. Get a season ticket, come down. If you're a nice fella, you're going to get a ticket. If you do a few seasons on there and the place comes up.
Respect the anglers and just respect the lake and
the fish, yeah.
just go up and do your own thing.
Exactly, yeah. Don't break the rules.
Yeah.
It's I've never fished a lake like it where you're not being troubled by anybody else. Last time I went down there was 2 of the guys arguing with each other. That one was like the first guy who'd caught a fish off this spot was worried that the bloke who was fishing 50 metres down the bank from him, that the first guy was worried that he was too close to him. So he said, I'll move my rod off the spot I've caught the fish, and so I'm not near you. And they're having an argument. No, I'll move mine. And you don't get that on lakes these days.
That reminds me of a friend was lucky enough to get a guest with Tom. And Tom, actually, they went out onto the Long Island. They were fishing out on there. And there were a couple of guys fishing. I think they were on the canal. It must have been some of the old boys from the other rotor. And Tom goes, yeah, look at those 2 over there. He said, if I wound their rigs in now, I could hang the hook off of my thumb. But he said they don't care. No. They just love it. They just come down and just love it.
Absolutely. And the fact that there's still people in the syndicate who were at the beginning of the, Sauvie Lake's existence, with a rotor, and Bob Davis and that. Lionel.
Yeah.
Dave Campbell.
Yeah.
They've been members for like 40 years or something.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many lakes would you find that on? There's
very,
no way.
very few. I mean, to be honest, I'm surprised Lionel survived that long, to be fair. But no, it's an old boys club, isn't it? It's full of old boys.
It's the end of the rainbow, I think, Damo, for carp fishing. It's
possibly
a nice retirement home for fishermen.
Maybe. I mean, it's like last of the summer wine, isn't it, when you go to summer swim? But it's a lovely place to just sit.
Yeah.
Even without your fishing rods out.
The camaraderie, the lake is the lake's got a little bit for everyone, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. And there are, it's fair to say, angling abilities of every level fishing the lake. Some not so good, some really, really top class anglers fishing there. But it's a pretty level playing field on fish captures, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah. The lake giveth and the lake taketh away.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's one of them places where you can have loads of disasters and the lake is testing you to your limit, just to say, like, I'm just poking you again, see
how much you can take.
Yeah. And then it rewards you with a fish.
It does. It's a strange place, isn't it? I remember HS2, I was fishing on one of Tom's syndicate lakes at the time, and I rang him up one afternoon to say, Tom, do you mind if I have a look around Sauvie? And he said, oh, chap, you can't. Oh, sorry, chap. He was really apologetic. No, it's a close season, so. But he said, you can have a season ticket, chap. You can have a season ticket. And it was all kind of prompted by HS2. Tom had started a petition up because the rail link is going straight. It's going over the North Bay, isn't it? Yes. It's curving. It's cutting the last quarter off the North Bay. But that was a wake-up call as well, wasn't it? And, it made me want to go and fish Sauvie. But it's also the HS2 thing as well woke me up to what can go on in this country and how shameless people can be,
Absolutely. I mean, that bridge, the brainchild of somebody called Lord Adonis, that he just wanted to see a bit of water as he flew back from London to Birmingham or whatever that was, is absolutely destroying the countryside in that area, isn't it? I mean, our lake is going to suffer. Korda Lake is going to suffer. Broadwater, Pitt too,
People's homes.
Absolutely. Sauvie Farm, which is steeped in history, is going to be like 200 metres away from that railway track. You've got fireplaces in there which you could stand a cow in, and the beams in the roof are from Viking longships. It's a beautiful sprawling estate that is just going to be blighted by that train, and that poor guy lives in that cottage in the Cottage Bay.
Yeah, great view out of his window.
Yeah, brilliant.
All right if he likes watching trains going past very fast.
Or let's hope, it gets stopped.
Yeah. Like I say, it's far from over yet, isn't it? But I remember the first time I walked round there. You never forget walking around there, pulling into the Day Anglers car park, making sure you don't go into the Syndicate car park by accident, and walking. The thing with that lake is as well, when you drive in, you don't see the lake, do you? You go into the car park and the lake is kind of all around you, but you can't see it.
I know when I went down for my first trip, or I think my first visit as a syndicate angler. I walked down into the Secret, really nervous. I mean, I work for Korda, I've met pretty much everybody in carp fishing, my heroes, Hutchin, all that stuff. But I was really intimidated walking on the lake for the first time. And as I walked down, I think one of the loonies was playing a fish, and that turned out I netted it for him. It was a 50-pounder, and that was just crazy, But I was intimidated when I walked on there to start with. But they're such a friendly bunch, aren't they?
It's a total leveler. It doesn't matter whether you're running a company like this or you work on the bins. It just doesn't. It's all the same.
Yeah, we're all pals.
Yeah, we're all pals. I remember seeing it walking down that road bank, and this day angler come marching straight up to us, and we still hadn't really seen the lake. We walked past the lagoon, which is quite small and intricate, isn't it? And they cut the road bank island back that year, so you could see straight into the cottage bay. But I wasn't looking left, because he was kind of walking towards me, and he starts talking to me, and as he's talking, I just look over to the left, and it's like, holy shit, look at that. And it's just the cottage bay, flat calm, and it just looked too beautiful to cast into. And I remember this guy was talking, and he said, but you'll never get, he said, we won't catch anything on days. And then while he was going on about how difficult it was on days, I thought, I will not stop until I can fish this lake. And in that minute, 2 minute conversation, I already thought, I will do whatever it takes to. It's just the smells around there. There's certain smell. On the canal, the canal in winter, when they burn, they've got those fires on the barges, haven't they, to cook, and that is such a distinctive smell. It is, it's like steam engines. The black mud, the coats and all. It's just the smell of cut grass. I don't think I smell that down there. But John likes to get his mower out a little bit, doesn't he? In the summer, yeah. But it's special, isn't it? It's really special. And the carp that swim in there, they're a mixed bunch of different looking carp, aren't they? You've got leathers and double row linears, real dark, deep chocolate brown mirrors. There are some really special carp. Old, yeah, but not all the best looking carp in the country either, are they? No, they're not. There's some right, but it's just, they're special. Every single one of those it means so much, doesn't it? Everybody should get a ticket and go and fish there, shouldn't they? Yeah. Maybe they might after this. Experience it. It's definitely it's a bit of a forgotten lake, isn't it? Yeah. No, it's very traditional, and it hasn't changed since 1981, wasn't it? First round. Yeah. It hasn't changed in the slightest. Exactly the same. Just the fish are a bit bigger. The banks look a bit different. Yeah. But the lake looks as beautiful as it. Absolutely. Yeah. And HS2 was one of the reasons I sort of kind of stopped fishing in France. Because time is limited, and you need to make the most of it, because you kick yourself if you don't go and fish there. And that bridge goes through it and it destroys it all. Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. Actually, you're talking about France. That brings us on to your European fishing. So you there looked like a point around the early 2010 or 11 where you thought, right, okay, I'm going to go out and go and try and catch some of the biggest carp in the world, hopefully. Sorry, was that actually an intention to go to France just to try and target some really, really big carp? Yeah, it was, I've been, there's a couple of things. I'd seen in, I think it was about 98, there was a geezer called Christian Balderman, Balderman, a Romanian guy. He caught the world record. It was 82 pound from Reduta. It was a photo with a fairly round mirror with big scales on its back, and he was sort of holding it like this, And what was that, world record? It was a world record, yeah. And I was over Layer Pits. I think it was in Carp Talk or something, and I
was looking at it and I was just thinking, oh, this is unbelievable. Look at this carp. You know, I'd seen carp. I'd seen Cottis catching, Max Cottis, when he caught the Ellis fish at £68. I think that was in Course Fisherman because he was the editor of Course Fisherman when I was at school. You know, and obviously Kevin Ellis's fish, and then Richie McDonald had gone to France. You know, that was all in the Angling Times. He had that lever at £57 or whatever, and you know, Rod had gone and he caught those fish. But I'd seen these fish, and all in the back of my mind, I'd always thought I really want to catch one of these big carp. But you know, it was well beyond my capability at the time, and financial means, and you know, it was just out of the question. But I started fishing in France. I've been fishing in France for a long time. Caught a lot of fish in France, up to sort of £60, and I just thought, well, I didn't just think actually. I was fishing at the Grange, Kenny Gates's lake. I was fishing it in the winter. It was in December. You know, I've been plugging away over there, and as Ken does, he wanders around in the middle of the night. Come in, we're having a chat and we're talking about it. And he talks about this guy who'd gone to this lake in France and he caught this big common. By design, you know, he'd set his stall out to go and catch this fish, and that fish was the Saussaie Common. I don't know how big. I think it might have been £88, but whatever it was, you know, I was like, that sounds awesome. And then Clive Gibbons had caught it, that particular fish, who works for us. You know, he caught it, and I saw that fish, and I thought that the first time I saw it, he caught it. I thought it looked a bit tatty, a bit ropey, and wasn't really that turned on by it, but the more I thought about it and the conversation I had with Clive, we kind of decided, yeah, why don't we just go and try and catch some of these fish? So I had a list of 5 carp. I had 5 carp on my wall in my office at the old place. I had Eric's Common. I had Gravier's fish, Scar. I had Shoulders when Lizette caught it from Abbey Lakes. I think it was £84. It was a world record for a female. And I had the Saussaie Common. Sorry, I had 4 carp. And then a 5th one come up later on. So I had these 4 carp, and I thought I'd really like to catch one of these, if not all of them, right? But how are we going to get to fish these lakes, right? So to get on the lake where that big common was very, very difficult, because it was a big carp in a commercial lake.
Was it really well known? I mean, were all the you know the big fish guys across Europe, were they all sort of ascending on that lake?
I don't think so. You know, you've got, you know, there at the time there was a carp called Mary, which was in Germany, big common, which was £80. I think it went £90 once or something. I'm not sure, but it was a big. That was in the syndicate water. There was no chance of getting anywhere near that. I'm sure there was other fish of similar size, but you know, Saussaie, you know, it's a bit frowned on fishing the commercials. But you know, I've got limited time, you know, and I was really struck by how big these fish look, you know, and I wanted to catch one. So eventually I got a trip. So the first trip was to Saussaie. So we'll go there, right? So
just totally focused on really
on
just
that common, right? Absolutely. My youngest daughter Francesca, she was still a baby, and I was feeding her milk. So from the point I got the trip to the point I went, I used to, you know, have the routine in the bedroom with it, you know, rocking her, taking her to bed, giving her the milk. That.
Well, I can actually.
But you know, every night I was just thinking about catching this common. On the drive to work, I was thinking about catching this one. On the drive home, I was thinking about catching this common. So I was a little bit obsessed with it. So it was, you know, you've got to go with a positive mental attitude, haven't you?
Absolutely. So as well as that, were you looking at previous captures? So that fish then was an upper 80.
It was £88.
£88. So you were looking at. So are you looking at what time of the year it gets caught, and when's the best time to fish their moon phases? Or
I think we looked at what time it got caught. It was a once or twice a year fish. I can't even remember what time of year I caught it, but whatever time it was, that was a period when it would get caught. So in the run up to my trip, that fish hadn't been caught since the year before. I think it must have been early season. So every week I was hoping it hadn't got caught, So the record common, I think, the world record common was, I think at the time it was £88 and 4 ounces or 8 ounces. It was something like that anyway. So not only was I going fishing for this massive fish, but there was a slight possibility that it could be a world record, right? So I think there was 5 anglers on our trip, because it's obviously a small lake. So Clive's mate Roger, who we affectionately know as Bullet, because Bullet got the name from Lee Walton, because he's, bless him, he suffers from like the worst kind of arthritis known to man, and it's fusing his spine together and his joints, and he's had a pretty tough few years on different medication, and but fair play to Bullet, he never complains about anything, and he goes fishing with us wherever we want to go in France. He comes along and we have a right laugh, but fast is not Bullet, right? So Bullet was getting out of his bivvy to a take, which was taking him ages to get out the sleeping bag. So Lee said it was either, I'm going to call him the Slug or the Bullet, and the Bullet stuck.
Bullet's good, isn't it?
Didn't
you swan him off into a bad swim at that trip as well? Wasn't there something about you both wanted to fish the same swim on the lake?
I think it was something like that. Basically, there's like, the lake's quite long and thin. There's an island, and I wanted to control the water in the middle of the lake to the right hand side of the island, because that's where that fish had previous in getting caught. So I can't even remember anyway, we did the draw. We convinced everybody to fish on the same side, so no one would be encroaching on anybody else, which everybody was happy with. So Bullet went in I think it was 1 and 2, and I think I ended up in swim 4 or 5. So I got where I wanted to go. And I got Kev at Mainline to make me up some really big Activate baits. I sort of got it in my head that Activate was a good common bait.
Yeah, you were saying that.
And
had that fish been caught on that bait?
I don't think so, but I'd caught, like I was fishing like the Colne Valley Lake, Harrow Waltonians, and it's I'd caught a lot of commons on, and there's not many commons in the stock on Activate, so I just thought, well, I'll use that, mate up some big ones. So I ended up fishing that area, and a couple of nights in, we hadn't caught anything. We'd seen a couple of fish. I'd seen the big one actually come out of the water in front of Bullet. I was thinking, oh no, Bullet's going to catch it. And I was sitting on his bed chair. I might have got the story a bit mixed up.
Poor old Bullet.
But these fish are leaping out in front of Bullet anyway. And Bullet's had a jittery old take. He's picked the rod up. He's playing it in. And he's got it about halfway in. It's rolled on the surface. And I thought, oh, that looks big. But I could see it was a mirror. It wasn't a common. So I said to him, Bullet, you don't want to lose this one, son. And he just looked at me and I went, no, you really don't want to lose this one. I reckon, because I was pretty sure what fish it was. And his little legs went and started backwinding immediately. I mean, it ain't the common, mate, but it's a big fish. So anyway, he was playing it. Anyway, we got it in, and it was the second biggest fish in the lake. I think it was 65 pound from memory. Lovely old carp, really nice fish. But yeah, Bullet, bless him, he managed to hold it up for the photos and that. And there's a great video on our Facebook page of Bullet putting a common back and nearly drowning when Danny was taking a picture of him going under in his waders, where the common sort of got the better of him and he nearly let it go. But fair play to him, he wrestled it back and got his pictures. But yeah, so I was commanding in the middle of the lake. Bullet had caught these couple of fish. At some point in the first few days of the trip, there was a shallow area in which was actually a no fishing area, which I found out later, and there was loads of carp in there. So I went around there stalking. Couldn't get a bite. Couldn't buy a bite. They were just all over me. And I was thinking, oh no, what am I doing wrong? So I thought, I'm going to fine everything down. So I went back that night, fined everything down. I've been using probably 4 or size 6. Went down to a size 8 curve, little tiny hook, little snowman rig. Put my rods back out. I had them at varying 3 ranges and had baited across the lake with quite a lot of bait, thinking it's not that big a lake. At some point during the trip, that fish is going to eat. I'm going to put out a good bed of bait for it. Had a couple of bites. I think I had a 40 pounder and a 30 pounder and caught a couple. And then I don't know what day it was, probably Wednesday or Thursday. During the day, Danny Turtle came down from Gigantica, he brought me and brought it down this chilly. So we were sat in Bullets Room, which is only a few yards up the bank, and I've had this jittery old take. It was about midday, I think. Jittery old take. So I'm sort of walking back. It wasn't even like a proper take. I said to turn it down, I said, wouldn't it be mad if I caught that common while you was here? He went, yeah, it'd be crazy, wouldn't it, mate? So I've gone over, picked the rod up, sort of wound down, lifted into it. Just thinking,
I've hit the bottom.
This feels a bit weird. And then it starts taking, all I can describe it as is if you hooked your rod into the back of your car on your drive, which was on a bit of a slope, someone got in it and released the handbrake and it rolled down the slope. That was what it felt like. So it was like taking line, and I'm thinking, I've never felt anything like this before. And there was a rumour there was a big catfish in there, but I've caught catfish before and they fight, quite differently. So Dan's standing next to me, and I said to Dan quietly under my breath, because there was a few people sort of, the other anglers sort of grouping up behind us, it's either a catfish or it's a big one. He went, does it feel like a catfish? I went, no. He went, it's got to be the big one then, isn't it? I went, yeah, I think it is. We're only a few minutes into the fight, but I ended up playing that carp for about an hour and 40 minutes before I saw it.
That is, that's mental.
It was mental. It was flat calm. I said to Dan, get my camera, take some photos while we're playing.
Well, it's only a small lake. It must have reached every corner of the lake.
At one point, I actually thought it was trying to get out of the lake. Giving it loads. I was giving it plenty of beans. So it's come up. It sort of surfaced. I don't know, like 80 yards out. Its back's come out, and the scales on it are just enormous. It sort of come out and sort of. It's got level with the sort of near the island, and on the island there's like some floating weed just in the shallow water. And it's not a very big island, but then it's thought I'm going to try and get behind the island. So it's sort of shit or bust. So I've give it some line. Got the rod under the water trying to turn it round, and he's just got to the shallow water where the weed is, and he's rolled over and he's sort of come back and he's shot along the edge of the island. I've got him on a bit of a shorter line, and I'm not going to give him any more line. He's come round. So he's come right into the front of the swim, and for 20 minutes he's just charging round in a massive circle. So Dan, bless him, has taken loads of photos, and there's
at least you had evidence.
He's got all of them, like it's just the water's just vortex after vortex. And the old bailiff picked me net up and come over and went, sorry chap, I'm going to net this because no one else is going to knock it off for me, nobody else can have that responsibility. I've got possibly what I think could be a world record carp on the end, and I'm going to net it myself. So the opportunity's come to net it. It's come up. The little lead's still on. I think I was using 2 ounce leads or something, 2.5 ounce leads, and it's come up. It's come over the cord, and it's 42-inch net, and it's actually mouth has hit.
That picture's insane.
Yeah, it hits the spreader block.
Yeah.
The lead sort of drops down as I sort of lower the rod. The lead gets caught over the other side of the net, and the fish is sort of hanging there with its tail out of over the cord. So I'm like, oh no, can't get it. So I just sort of shuffle it a little bit, and fortunately the lead flips over and the fish goes in the net. So looking down on it, and it was a bit emotional. Do you know what I mean? Like you've had 2 hours of playing this fish that you're so close for them 20 minutes, and you think, you've got this tiny little look on.
Life's on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we ended up weighing it, and it was 88 pounds on the nose. And
you got a picture, Toby? Let's have a look at that one.
Yeah, let me pull that out.
Saussaie Carp, common carp. So it's 88 pounds
on the nose. Yeah, it was as big as the waistlings we had. It was as big as the unhooking mats. It was just colossal, absolutely colossal. And picking it up was a bit of a job, really. I mean, yeah, that's
like something out of Thailand, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a picture of it up on the screen here. It's quite losing a bit of hair there, mate. That was around that sort of period, wasn't it? When they're
very stressful.
Yeah, it fell out during that fight. I bet
it did, mate. Yeah. But I mean, look at the size of the scales and its head.
It's crazy.
I mean, its head is bigger than mine.
It's prehistoric.
And I've got a big old noggin, but it's a big fish that.
Yes. And it went on to become world record, didn't it?
One of the guys who was fishing with us, I think his name was John, he went back. That fish got caught later on in that year, that same year I caught it at 88 pound. Then John caught it. I'm sure he caught it at 99 pound. And then it either come out at 99 or 101. But John had caught it at 99. Either it came out at 101 first, and then John caught it at 99. But yeah, 99, 101, then it died. So you know, it was colossal at that weight. So to be...
How long do you think it was in there for?
Well, Carl, who works for us, Carlos and Ali, fished that lake early 90s, and Carl caught it at, I want to say, £50. And I think it had gone in there. I think Jordan's dad, Keith Wesley, had supplied that carp from another lake in France. So I think it had gone in there at like £40 or £30 or something. So it hadn't been in there that long. It was a genetic freak. You know,
because nothing else in there. So you said the next biggest one was a mid-60.
Was at 60.
Still a really big carp.
Really big, yeah. And then that night I caught the third biggest fish in the lake, which was quite funny really. I caught it just as it was getting dark, got it in the net. But it shouted down to me, "You've got one?" I went, "Yeah, don't worry, mate. It's only a £20." And it was £56, I think. My sense of scale had just been obliterated.
Yeah.
You know, it was only when we lifted it out of the net I thought, "Oh, that's quite heavy."
Yeah.
I still wasn't expecting it to weigh £56, but you know, it was a big fat mirror carp. You know, it was a hell of a trip, that was. So from that moment on, from seeing that fish on the bank, seeing it in the water, experience that adrenaline, that rush.
That was it.
Where
did you go to after that?
So the next lake on our list,
on the list
was Graviers.
Right.
So in that lake you've got the fish called the brown fish, which was an 80-pounder, and then you've got the scarred mirror, which was another genetic freak.
Yep. Do you want to just get into? I mean, people do know the story about the scarp, but not everybody knows that.
I mean, briefly, the lake was the house that the guy Luke owns was a restaurant, and the story goes that the fish was caught by an angler in the lake. The fish was caught from the lake by an angler and shown to the owner of the restaurant. The restaurant owner kept the fish and tied some blue nylon rope around it so that he could basically let it out on a lead and then bring it in to show customers this carp. So after many years, however long it was, something happened and the rope broke or whatever, but the bit of rope that was around the fish remained. And then I think an English guy caught it, and I think it weighed £56 or something, and he could still see the rope. He cut the rope off and pulled it out from under the fish, and then something genetically happened to the carp. Move that back. Where it obviously thought, I need to eat. Didn't know when to stop. You know, I've got to do something to combat whatever had happened to it. The next minute, you know, it's coming at £80, £70, £80, £90. I think it even did £100 or 99. I think Andre caught it at £99. That was a world record. It's just a massive, massive carp.
It was huge frame, wasn't it? Did you do many sessions on there?
No, I did one session with Clive and my mate Jonesy, and Clive caught the brownfish. I think it was £82. I think it was. Lovely carp, very unusual, very sort of leathery like. And then we went back. That was in the summer. Then we went back the following November.
Again, November, was there any reason for November? Good time to catch that fish?
Well, the thing was, you know, you were at the mercy of ringing up on a particular day to get a trip. So, you know, obviously Luke had his favourite customers and the rest of it, so we were new getting there. So we got a November trip. But, you know, it had form coming out in November, so I wasn't too bothered. So there was three of us on that trip, and we were fishing on the point. I was fishing on the side of the point that looks up or down the lake, the side of where Luke's house is. And I was fishing, initially fishing to this sort of tree, which was along the bank, along my right-hand side. You know, you're using a boat to go out and bait up and stuff. And I think within a couple of hours, I'd caught a carp. I think I'd had a 20-pounder off this spot. And the spot was just a tree, which had basically there's no snags in the lake, you know, but with all the leaves and that on the bush, it had gone into the lake, and it created a bit of a feature, if you like, in a fairly featureless area. But the thing I'd noticed that under the bush where I was catching from, there was some clay. The clay was quite sticky. When you dropped the lead on it, you pulled it out, you'd get the clay on your lead. And all around that area, there wasn't that clay. So I caught one on that, basically just on a boilie with some sweet corn over it. And as the trip went on, I caught a few fish in the first few days. I caught 50-pounder, I think, 56-pounder. But the more the session went on, the more I was thinking, Scar's not down this end, he's down the other end. And the rules on the lake stipulate you have to have 2 anglers fish together because the fish are so big. You need 2 people to handle them. So I was stuck where I was, and Luke had said to me, the furthest you can fish is the swim that's along that bank. That's the furthest you can boat out. But I just had this feeling that Scar was down the other end. There's a big bar down the other end, and I just thought he was down there. I don't know why. It's just gut instinct, and I've got a lot of carp on gut instinct. And so on this particular night, I decided I was going to go out wide of that bank, go all the way down to that swim, fish in front of that swim, and hope over the next few days that carp might wander along that margin and find my bait. But when I got to that swim, it was pretty barren. There's nothing in front of it. There's trees either side of it, but it just didn't look very good. So I sort of paddled my way back up the margin in the boat, and probably halfway along that margin there was a tree again, which was overladen with leaves, and it was really in the lake. And I'd plod around with a lead and found some of that same clay. So I put my bait under that tree that night with 23 offerings, 2 16mm boilies on a hair rig, sort of like the DF rig we sell. I use that rig. Sort of 6 inches a stiff hybrid, some sweet corn. And when I got back to the bank, I said to the matey who was there, who was the other guy there, not Clive, I'm going to catch Scar tonight, and I'm going to set this alarm. It's going to be on high pitch. I was so confident I was going to catch it. When you hear that buzzer go, I'm catching Scar on that rod. And I'd even text Tom to say, I'm so confident of catching Scar tonight, it's going to happen. I could feel it in my bones. So that night it was freezing, and we'd all sat in my bivvy. We were watching a film on the iPad or whatever. We'd 3 gas heaters going in a big double, armadillo thing. And we were sitting in there in T-shirts, it was freezing outside, but it was 30 degrees in there. So we had our tea, watched the film, went to bed. It was all tucked up and that, and I got a couple of bleeps on that high-pitched rod. And then it just sort of rattled off, jumped out, picked the rod up, and just thought, this feels big. Sorry, this feels really big. So I'm sort of playing it, winding it in, and it's a long way out. It's probably 300 yards out along the margin. You can't get caught up on anything. I'm pulling it back. I'm thinking, you can feel it through your forearm. The weight is in there when you're playing it. And he sort of come round, and our mate boy's come over. I can't remember his name. He's come over, and I said, go and get Clive. Tell him I've got Scar on. So he's come over, and he's gone, oh, mate, he said, you got a big one on. I went, yeah, mate, I've got a Scar on. I'm sure of it. So I'm playing it in. So it's probably 10 yards out. So I thought, I've got to look. Because I'm looking at the line with my head torch to see where it is. I've got to look at the fish. So it's a bit splashed on top. Put the head torch on, see this pasty looking fish, thinking, I turned to Clive and went, that don't look like no 90 pounder, does it? And he went, no. So I was like, oh. So I was really sort of a bit disappointed. I was thinking, but it feels massive. So it's come round again, and I thought, let's get another look at it. So I turned the torch on, and all you could see was that line, the cut in the back, and the line going down the side of it. And I looked at Clive and, wow, this shit's just got real, So the swim I was fishing in, it sort of going around the front of the point. So I walked around the front of the point. So in between me catching the Saussaie fish and going on the next trip, I used a dye mag landing net, and I got Graham to make me some 50-inch arms because of how ridiculous it was to get that fish in that Saussaie Common. So I've got my new 50-inch arms. Again, I'm going to net this fish myself. So it's up on the surface. Got it up, just got it in the net. It's gone in the net, no drama at all. Looked in the net, and it was just enormous, absolutely enormous. We've put the net down. Me and Clive had a big old hug. One of them moments. Sat there, we just took it in for a few minutes, and then you have to ring Luke. If you catch one of those big ones, anything over 50, give Luke a ring. So it's getting pretty windy by the time Luke's come round. Got it in the water and that. So Luke is very, very, very concerned about the welfare of his carp. So everything's unhooked and weighed, and everything's done in the water. It's a bit precarious, it's a bit clayey, a bit slippy. But I was expecting with Luke there, we'd just get a couple of photos and then he'd want it to go back. But he was really well behaved, to be fair. And he told me, I turned it around. I got some banging photos of it in the dark, And I generally don't smile too much.
Get one for you.
But I was smiling. That fish weighed 93.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And it was just enormous.
Have you ever thought, what would have happened if you were telling everybody that you're playing that fish in? And
when it come off?
Yeah, Damian Clarke's telling everyone he's got this fish on, and then it was like a 30-pounder or a 40-pounder.
Well, you'd feel stupid, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
there it is for you.
You really would. But I don't know, Si. I've had some of my biggest fish have come on. I've known, that opportunity is going to happen.
Yeah.
But there's no logical explanation for that. But I have sent text to people saying I really think I'm going to catch it, and it's happened a few hours later.
That's spooky, isn't it?
Yeah, without seeing it or.
How strange is that?
It's strange, yeah.
Still see the scar on it, can't you?
You can see the scar running down it, yeah. A lovely old carp, that. Really, a piece of carp fishing history.
It's just a massive framed fish, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, Damo, you went on to you went on to Rainbow.
Rainbow, yeah. So
have you just done the one session or 2 sessions on Rainbow?
No, I've done a few on there now.
Have you?
But the first session I got to go with Tim Paisley.
Yeah.
I think Tim had offered Ali the trip, but I was desperate to go and was trying to get a trip, and Ali wasn't really too sure about it. So so me and Tim went. Didn't really know Tim that well to start with, but I really liked him. He's got a very dry sense of humour. He's pretty old now, to be fair. I mean, he was pretty old when we went. He was like, you'd be talking, all right, Tim, yeah, he's talking. But I turned around and he fell asleep mid-conversation.
He's the first. He's my. Well, maybe Rob Mailing with the books. But Tim Paisley was massively influential.
Yeah, he was. I mean, we're sitting over Rainbow. It's pissing down with rain the whole time we're there, and Tim is out in the boat whenever he needs to go out. I mean, he's so keen. He never uses the motor. Never saw him use the motor. He's rowing everywhere, And I've said to people, they'll find him either dead in the boat, or in his bivvy, and that's the way I'd like to go out fishing.
It's a testament to getting older as well, that you can look after yourself and just keep on going.
He's so keen, and I truly hope I'm as keen as he is when I'm his age. And we had a great session. We fished in Peg 12, I think it was. So we arrived at the lake. It was raining. The guys in Peg 12. Oh, Rod and Mally were in 12. That was it when we got there. So we were moving in behind them. That was like one of the first times I met Rod. We went round, sat on his bed chair. The water was coming in. He was making a cup of tea. And we had a chat and all that. And then they moved swim. So Rod and Mally moved into the next swim. They moved into 11 for their next week, and we were in 12. And I fished. There's like a cut through that goes through sort of into the island's water. And Tim wanted me to fish that side. He wanted to fish the other side. I think really because Martin Lockie had caught the big in that side. He sort of influenced that, done more big fish. But I just wanted to go. We were in July. I wanted to have a go over there. I didn't really believe how vicious the bites were going to be. Tim was sort of like, boy, them rods are going to wrap round. I was using sort of ESP lead core, I think at the time, like 45-pound lead core. First bite I had, just snapped the lead core in two within a nanosecond. I think Tim was a bit surprised that we caught quite so quickly. We had eye bites within the first couple of hours really, and caught steadily all the way through the week. Had quite a lot of fish, up to about 52 pound, I think 53 pound. Lost a really big fish, but it really opened my eyes to the severity of the lake,
a whole different,
and the savageness of the takes. You cannot sleep properly fishing at Rainbow.
But what about tackling that lake? Because it doesn't matter what you've done anywhere else in the world, does it? Rainbow is completely different anywhere else. I mean, you've got access to a lot of people and you can talk, but can anything really prepare you for your first session on Rainbow? Not
really. I mean, I was fishing with boilies and tigers and Brazils that first session. I was using our continental hooks to start with, and then but the hook links I had and the lead core and that just wasn't up to it. The braided line, I think I had some sort of don't know whose line it was, £30 braid. I think I got it from tackle box or something. But you know, my lead core and that wasn't up to it, and luckily all the leader material wasn't up to it. But Tim, you know, gave me some gear that was well and truly up to it. When I got back from that, I'd sort of got my mind, I'm fishing rainbow for a bit, you know, I really got bitten by it. So I designed some hook links, some leaders, some lead core that is more than up to it, you know. So on the next trip, I got a trip with Kev and Jordan. I didn't know Jordan at the time, and Kev Knight, in fact, had got me in touch with this other Kev, and I'd asked him, I wanted to go and swim 5, done some research on Eric's. It came out of that swim.
Sorry, what time of the year?
This was in October.
October, sorry.
So I got a trip in October in swim 5, but it had been getting caught on the right-hand side of the swim, but I wanted to fish the left-hand side of the swim. Don't ask me why. I just didn't really know. I just wanted. Because
the left-hand side traditionally is especially in the summer, isn't it? Is it that the left-hand side's
can do more bites?
Yeah,
You know. But I knew Sean McSpann had caught Eric's from the left-hand side of the swim, but very short. But by the time we got to the lake, there was rumours going around that the fish was dead. Right, so some Polish guys had caught it and they'd held it up in the wrong way, and you know, there was, you know, nobody was really sure if it was still in there. But the guy who was in the swim before I got there was a guy that I'd sort of got to know called George Zonka, and George had said to me that he kept hearing this really big fish jumping down the channel to the left, really to the left of the swim, which is a narrow channel which sort of divides the lake really, and he kept hearing it down there, but you know, he'd fished down there but hadn't caught anything. So I set my stall out to fish the left hand side. I'd found this big tree which sort of was near the dividing line between swim 5 and swim 6, which they call the fridge, because it's always in darkness, it's always in, you know, there's no sun gets to it. So I'd hooked a really big fish in this snag and lost it. I don't think I've hooked anything like it. It you know, it left me shaking. I can't describe it really. You can't, you know, the takes are so savage, you can't get the rod out of the rest because everything is locked up and locked in. To get the rod out, you know, you've got to physically get it out of the rear rest, get it out of the snag ears, which are ultra long, the rod's high, you know, and I was just standing there just couldn't do anything with it, you know, and it was rod's at test curve, I'm trying to get in the boat, you know, and I lost it, and I was just like, what on earth was that? You know, I had to sit down and have a cup of tea, you know, and I don't get rattled by many things, but that, seriously, that'll live with me forever. Whatever that was, you know, I dread to think. But, so anyway, I had a couple more bites off this spot, and in between time, I spoke to Arjun, who's like an editor of a Dutch magazine, fishes the lakes all the time, and he'd said to me, are you fishing this spot down the left-hand side margin? I said, no. He said, you must fish there. There's like a little cut through in the bank where water, when it rains, the water runs into the lake. There's a little shelf there. It does big fish. You must have a rod there. So you've got to go on local knowledge, haven't you? So I put a rod down there, and it'd only been out there a few hours, and I had a take and had probably the smallest carp in the lake, you know, a little common on a tiger nut on this little gravel shelf. And we're coming up to the full moon period. You know, it was like perfect. And I think it was the following night. I was sitting there. The moon was proper bright, and it was lighting up the lake, and I could just feel I'm going to catch this fish. We don't even know if it's still alive, but I just had this overwhelming sense of it's going to happen. And I tried to stay up. I stayed awake till about midnight by my rods. It was really cold, and it was damp. You know, you've got this mist coming off the lake and all the rest of it. I just thought, oh, you're mad. Just get in your bag. So I got my bag, and I had to take it about 1 o'clock. So it's solid. I've picked the rod up. It's solid. Jump in the boat, gone out there, and my line is basically got caught on a snag. It was just like an old, you know, when a tree turns to balsa wood, the leader is just cut through, or the braided line is cut through it, and it's got stuck on it. I can see it in the torchlight, so I'm pulling myself over, and in the end I've just like smashed the rod into it, so the ring has gone into it, like 12 foot. I just pulled myself over, pulled the line out the woodwork, wound down. Unfortunately, the fish hadn't gone too far. So I'm sort of playing the fish in the dark now, right? So the rod is totally hooped over by the boat. I know that the water is I think it was about 12 foot deep, and my lead core leader is 6 foot long, so it's just over length for my arms, right? So I'm playing it, and I can see the lead core coming out of the water, and it's flat calm. There's, and it's this pitch black, other than a bit of the moonlight, and there's no sound at all, just the sound of the water lapping on the boat, but this irresistible force that is sort of pulling me along, and the lead core leader knot is sort of going under the water, coming up again, and as he's sort of pulling me, I become aware. I turn the light on and sort of have the light pointing down towards me on the lowest power, but you can see this little V coming off of the lead core, so it's pulling me along in the boat, and I realise that we're being towed, So got my bearings. I've had to put the motor on to sort of fight against it.
Yeah.
And anyway, it comes up, it turns round, and again you see these huge scales. And I'm thinking, that is big. They always look big in the dark, don't they? They always look bigger than they do. But in the torchlight, this thing is just rolling around under the boat, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how big is that? Anyway, it's come up. I've netted it first time really easily. Sort of tipped it over. I've got to look at its tail, because its tail is huge and it's folded over. And it's Eric's. It's this carp that I've wanted to catch. I thought I'm going to catch. And there it is in the net. It's just like surreal, really.
It's getting a bit familiar, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So I'm like, just blown away. Absolutely blown away. My mate, by this time, is on the bank. So I'm making my way over. I've popped the net arms out. Got him up against the boat. He's all secured and that. Haven't said anything. We sort of beached the boat, and I've said, Barty, it's effing massive. I think it's Eric's. So we got it out anyway. It is, it's obviously Eric. So shipped it round the front, and we put it in a retainer sling. We haven't taken it out of the water or anything. We've gone round to get Arjun to come and give us a hand to weigh it and photograph it. So we weighed it and photographed it there and then. It was 85 pounds, 12 ounces.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
yeah, let me get that one.
Well, there's another one after this, isn't there? It's Eric's Common, isn't it? It's one of the most iconic fish in the lake as well, isn't
Absolutely. It's a bruiser of a carp.
I love those pictures, Damo. When they're on the mat like that, and you're trying to.
Yeah, that's a sense to get a sense of scale. I mean, look how small my hands are.
Yeah.
Look how big its pectorals are and its head.
Huge pecs.
It's just, and its tail was enormous.
Mm.
And I'm not very big, but this fish was enormous. It was as wide as my, from my hand to my elbow.
Yeah.
Under its pelvics.
It's just handling fish that size as well, isn't it? I mean, you need to be stood in the water with those,
Yeah, we did. To be fair, we did the photos. We did some photos on the bank with it there. We had a couple of shots in the water, and we let it go. But as it turns out, yeah, we got to see him a bit later in the week. So I'd carried on fishing, still fishing down this channel, and I think it was a day where it was raining, it was overcast, it was cloudy. The rain had cleared, and I had a take again, a really savage take on that snag rod that was down that channel margin, and immediately got in the boat, ran my way out to it, and was playing it. It was this familiar feeling of.
So it was complete deja vu. Everything
absolutely
was the same.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but I wasn't thinking it was the same fish. I was thinking,
no.
There were other big carp in the lake.
There's a lot of fish in the lake.
So, at the time, I think there was 3 that could have been over 80 pound, and I was thinking, I've got a real another big fish, and so yeah, I'm playing it. I think we even got some photos of me playing it, but it was rolling around, and the appreciation of it was a bit more because you could see everything that was going on. Got towed me round the swim. It was just like a dog on a lead, and he was the dog, and he was pulling me around on the lead. So we got it in, and
bit familiar.
Yeah.
Let's have another look at this.
Let me see if I can get
got some
one.
better pictures of it this time, and
I love the pictures of the They're probably my favourite pictures of that fish, actually.
This is. I think this one's one of my favourite. This one.
Yeah.
So it's the same weight. First time I caught him on a couple of tiger nuts. Second time I caught him on a little wafter. Yeah, he was nailed. But I think that snag was so big, I think he was in there sulking.
How often did he get caught out of that snag, apart from when, obviously,
I don't know, to be honest,
occasions.
but I know he got caught out of that swim 5 a few times, you know. So, I mean, look, he's obviously had some tail damage in the past that's healed up. The rest of the tail's enormous. The tail was just gigantic.
It's a great picture, mate. Was that Adam Reeve?
Yeah, he's tidied it up. He's cleaned it up, Adam.
Yeah, but no, it's a fantastic picture. Blimey, mate. So you haven't been back there since?
I've been back to Rainbow, yes.
Right.
That fish is no longer in the lake.
No.
So I had another carp on the list, another 2 carp. So we had, I'd come back from Saussaie and had gone, I'd come back from Garavia's when I'd caught the Scar, and I'd gone to Saussaie for a weekend as a guest of Clive Williams. So I sat in one down and got this text on the first night from Dan, you know, the giant's been out, £92. It's like, what? You know, it was like a £70 or 80 just randomly come out of Coes, which it always got caught out of Coes, you know, at £92. Day later sent me a picture. Next week we're at work, me and Dan are booked up to do like loads of time there. We're going for this fish.
Yeah.
But unfortunately that one died. So that left the other one that was on my list was Shoulders, which was in Abbey Lakes. So this Lizette, I'm sure her name is, had caught this fish at £84. Max Cottis had then caught it in the winter. He'd caught it at £90, I think £91 or something. So I loved that fish, you know, it had massive shoulders on it. It was just a huge fish. So he was the last one on my list. So I got myself a ticket, made the commitment of going there every 3 weeks to do 2 or 3 nights. I was going to take Elliot Gray, worked for us at the time. Elliot was going to come with me. We were going to just sort of catalogue it really as a bit of a trip. And
so not necessarily targeting it, you know, booking your holidays around a particular time, just fishing
not for this
that
one.
lake.
I had a winter ticket.
Abbey's quite close anyway, really.
Abbey's just the other side of the tunnel, isn't it? So I had a winter ticket where you could sort of have the run of the lake. It had plenty of winter form. You know, the lake had plenty of other big fish in it to back it up. So, you know, I wanted to catch that carp, so we were going to have to go there and catch it. First trip I went, it got caught. I think it was £93 or something. It was massive. So it actually come out the day I'd arrived. So we carried on fishing. I think I caught one, a 30-pounder. Then went back home, and then I think, excuse me, I think next week it was dead. So that was the end of it, really. So I haven't really had any other fish that have really taken hold of me that I want to go and target and spend the time and the effort in going to fish for.
Where do you need to go at the moment to catch a world record? Is it like Euroaqua somewhere?
Euroaqua, yeah.
Is that your sort of place?
I've been to Euroaqua. You know, it's different. It's proper commercial. It's certainly got some very big carp in there. I think the world record stands at £114 now for a mirror carp. The common carp record is from another lake in France. I think that fish was spawn bound, but it was still £101, 12 ounces I think it was. So it was slightly bigger than the old Saussaie fish. There's a couple of carp that I've seen recently that I quite fancy having a go for.
So is that something that's, you know, is that something that's on the horizon, or?
It's certainly on my radar, but the whole thing with HS2 and Saussaie, I mean, I'm really lucky. I've got some lovely lakes I can fish in this country, but I'm just taking the time and making the most of my fishing at Saussaie. Carp are only getting bigger on the continent, so there is going to be more and more 40-kilo carp. So when I turn my attention to it, possibly, you know, when Elliot's a little bit older and he's not quite so demanding, I can do the week sessions that you need, or the 2-week sessions that you need to do.
Yeah, they're always going to be there, mate, aren't they?
They are, yeah. And, you know, hopefully I would like to catch 100-pound carp. You know, that would be the ultimate. But
just
you know,
can't. Yeah.
That carp Darryl caught at 70-pound from Holland. That's a bit of a carp and a half, that one.
Yeah, we need to get him in and talk about that. That lake sounds a bit special as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's very few carp in there, you know, and that would be...
There's a few problems that kind of go with that lake, maybe, aren't there?
Well, you know, there's problems on every lake you go to. But if you're targeting a fish like that, there's obviously other people want to catch it as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, that would be very high on your CV if you had that one in your album.
Yeah, if you were to talk to people about, you know, trying to go overseas and catch, you know, specifically big carp, is there anything that you would, you know, is there advice that you would give?
You've obviously got to go prepared, but you've got to go prepared. I think the thing was with France, people take it a bit for granted. So, you know, they think it's easy big fish fishing, which I'm sure some lakes are very easy to catch carp, really overstocked. But places like Gigantica, they're deep, they're windswept. You know, they're highly pressured. You've got to go there as if you're fishing for English carp, you know, high pressured English carp. You've just got to be prepared, you know, and don't go there with any illusions, because a lot of people go undermanned, don't they, undergunned, because you can waste a lot of money fishing in France if you're not going to the right places. Yeah, it depends what you probably need from fish. Somewhere like Gigantica, certainly. I mean, it's a tough lake, but you've got a lot of big fish to get through. There's a lot of fish in the... I say a lot of fish in the lake, but it's not an easy lake, and there are other fish in the lake as well. So you could potentially spend an awful lot of time going to France, hoping, you know, to catch that elusive. Yeah, I think you've got to go to venues that suit your ability. Yeah, you know, because there are very difficult lakes and there are very easy lakes. Yeah, you know, and you can go with mates to some lakes, you know, and have a stag do or whatever you want to do, or go with your missus or whatever. Yeah, just enjoy it. Yeah, you know, enjoy it and see French fishing for what it is. Yeah. It's not English fishing. No. You know, because a lot of people have their minds blown by going to France, catch big fish, and they can't fish in this country any longer. But you see that a lot, don't you? Especially with some of our friends that have been doing it for a long time, and they just, you know, there is nothing else once you start fishing those sort of venues, aren't there? No, I can compartmentalize it. Yeah. You know, it's France. You know, it's completely different. You know, yeah. I haven't got loads of time, so I am going to fish a lake which has got... I've got a chance of catching. No point me fishing a 10,000 acre reservoir and trying to target one fish. It's not going to happen, is it? So, but again, you know, the fish have got to want to catch them. They've got to look like a certain way or something about them I want to see in my album. Yeah, that's right. But bigger the better. But the overriding thing is the size. They're just so immense on the bank. You know, you've got to have respect. Yeah, I want to see one. You know? I'd love to catch one. Yeah, I could see myself doing that. Maybe one day. You know, I think with English fishing at the moment, I'm quite happy with where I fish. I've got no aspirations to go and fish anywhere else. No. I think maybe that would be a nice progression. Yes, we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see. They're only carp, Simon. Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't know he's the biggest one, does he? No, of course he doesn't. No, he's the greediest one as well, potentially, Absolutely. Isn't he? So plans for the future then, Damo? Anything coming up on the horizon, fishing wise, personally? Not really. I mean, I'm going to plod along at Saussaie until HS2 either stops us or we get the green light that it's not going to happen. Then I will probably go and fish some other lakes. I've got a ticket for Frimley, Pitt free. You know, it's full of lovely commons, nice fishing. I just go fishing to enjoy myself. There's a classic theme with your fishing, though, isn't there? There's you know, you do like those older venues with the older fish. Yeah, I like places where I don't get any hassle. Right. You know, and that's really important because, you know, I do work for a company, a fishing tackle company, a well-known fishing tackle company. You do get people ask you stuff on the bank. You know, they don't punish me so much, but Tom gets punished fairly heavily, as does Ali and Spooner. You know, their level of fame, if you like, is stratospheric when you go down to Marks and Spencer's and Granny wants a photograph with Tom because she's watching Monster Carp. It's crazy. But, you know, the lakes I fish, I don't get any bother. So I'm happy, really. Yeah. You know, they've just got to be of a decent size. Carp I want to catch that look nice, you know. Yeah. I'm pretty easygoing. So you're nice and content anyway? Very content. I live a good life, you know. I love the job I do. I love the people I work with. Got a sound, solid family. Lovely wife who, you know, is my biggest supporter and someone who has got my back at all times. What more do you want? No, exactly. It sounds ideal. Well, look, thanks for very, very much for coming on the show anyway.
What's that been? 2 hours, 15 minutes, Damo.
That went quick, didn't it?
It did go quick. It was great to listen to as well. I really
It's been a
enjoyed
pleasure.
that.
Yeah, I enjoyed
pleasure.
it.
Maybe another one day.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. Damian Clarke, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.